What's up, folks? We're on to the New York Giants review. Power rankings, I have the Giants sitting at 13th. This team had a great season, spent so much money in free agency, really developed an awesome defense. That said, 13 a little lower than a lot of people are going to rank the Giants. I think they still have some holes, which we're going to talk about here as we go through the roster, starting at the quarterback. Eli Manning, one of those holes, had a terrible season in my opinion. When you have the receivers that this team has, and you have the reputation that you have as a two-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, you can't be the reason that your team is losing games, which really happened multiple times this season. Completely inconsistent on offense. So Eli goes down a little bit. He's sitting there with the likes of Andy Dalton right there as just kind of a middling quarterback, and he's getting up there in age, so I don't see this really improving. So I think in order for this team to take the next step, it's going to have to be through the running game, maybe develop a better offensive line, because I don't see Eli carrying this team offensively. As we talk about the running backs, that's definitely a position that's going to be addressed. Paul Perkins kind of ended the season as the starter. He's got some talent. I think if this team wants to really become a running powerhouse team that can play defense and run the ball, I don't think Paul Perkins is the guy. There's a lot of other options, whether that be the draft or there's rumors about, Adrian Peterson to the Giants would be a good fit. There's other good free agent running backs as well. Rashad Jennings, not the guy either. So that's going to be it for the running backs here. As we look at the receivers, Odell Beckham goes up a little bit. Had to increase his speed. Really just so fast with the ball in his hands. So as a ball carrier, Odell's going to be a little more explosive in my roster. And then the receivers, Shepard and Cruz, solid. I would think this team will look to add maybe one more receiver. I know Roger Lewis is an intriguing young rookie that had a decent year. Onto the tight end. Not a lot here as well. Will Ty and Jarrell Adams, decent receiving tight ends. I'm not sure they're going to address the tight end. I think they have other needs. Maybe later in the draft they'll add another piece, but I think Jarrell Adams could develop. And then onto the offensive line, Eric Flowers moves up a little bit. And then Justin Pugh, Weston Richburg, didn't even touch them. I'll agree with those ratings. And then the right side of the line could be improved as well. I think Flowers as well at left tackle could. He's probably going to be the starter, but he could be replaced in the future if he doesn't develop more. And then onto the defense, this is my main reason I'm lower on the Giants than most is the D-line, particularly the pass rush. It was the number one reason I picked Green Bay to really blow out the Giants. I know the Giants played well in the first half, but you could just tell this is not an elite pass rush. And Jason Pierre-Paul was still rated an 88 overall, so he comes down. I could have made him even lower, and I'm not even sure if Pierre-Paul is going to be back. I know he was franchised this year, so that will be interesting. Akwara, I had to move him up because he played well in place of Jason Pierre-Paul. But that'll be a big part of how good this team is next year is if they bring Pierre-Paul back and if he can play well. I know he had some good weeks, kind of the middle end of the season. He started to play better. And then Olivier Vernon, the big spender, he's a fine player. I don't think he's an elite pass rusher. He's very effective in the run game, very good at getting off blocks, but I don't think he's very much a refined pass rusher. So yeah, just to summarize, I don't think the Giants have the pass rush to sustain an elite defense. Their coverages were really good, but teams are able to adjust to that if you aren't getting after the passer. So that's going to have to improve, but I don't necessarily think they're going to address it because they have the guys. So that's kind of an interesting take on how I think the Giants are going to look next year. I think their defense is going to be very good, but I don't think it's going to reach that level of like Denver or Minnesota or some of those great Seattle defenses. I just don't think they have the pass rush. Damon Harrison, I wanted to make him a 90. He had an awesome year. The amount of tackles, solo tackles that Damon Harrison stacked up was incredible. I want to say he finished with like 70 solo tackles on the regular season. That's incredible for a nose tackle. So he goes up, and then Jonathan Hankins did not touch him. He's okay, not great. These linebackers, um, more or less the same. Devin Kennard goes down just a tiny bit. I moved Casillas from right outside linebacker to middle linebacker just because he's more of a starter than Kelvin Shepard, as he was sitting there as the number one middle linebacker. And then onto the corners. Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie is an absolute stud. He's a top 10 corner. So I moved him up a little bit. Janoris Jenkins, a great number 2, would be number 1 on many teams. But I am a huge fan of Cromartie. He's got size, speed, and has really come into his own later in his career after he moved around a few times. And then some really good depth here as well. Eli Apple, young. So I think this is the second best secondary in the NFL behind Denver. They just don't have the pass rush to complement it. And then the safeties, Andrew Adams was an 82 overall. And, I mean, he's going to be competing with the likes of Darian Thompson and maybe Nat Brahe or someone else for the starting job. And someone that's competing for a starting job is not an 82 overall. So fix that. And not to mention, I mean, Adams didn't really stand out to me. Honestly, I'd hardly heard his name. I could only remember a play or two regarding Adams. So the other safety opposite of Landon Collins is going to be up for grabs, but Landon Collins, breakout player of the year. I move him up a little bit. I believe Madden had him as a 91. I think he's one of the best safeties in football and is going to continue to grow as well. Really a do-it-all safety, great in coverage and defending the run. So that's it for the Giants. I spent a little longer talking about them because they're a very interesting team going into next year. We got the Jags coming up next. Thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for the next one. Peace out.